And then, bless his heart, with, no ill intention, he says, but essentially, you would fix me. You would make me a better man. In my head, it's just like, that's nice. A good therapist could do that too. It's like, that is not a reason to marry someone. Welcome to the club. This is Cracking the Spine, a book club that actually talks about books. So, in our last episode, I talked about my reactions after reading the first half of The Other Bennet Sister. And now I'm here because I finished the book and I have some thoughts. Alright, so first things first, I was completely wrong about Mary being a governess. I feel like I went on and on about that last episode, that I couldn't figure out why she ran away from being a governess to become a governess. And the answer is because she didn't. There's like one passing reference to she like kind of helped the gardener's kids with their homework. And for some reason my brain was like, oh, she must be their teacher. And that was wrong. I was wrong. But in the show, they made her a governess, but they left out Lady Catherine. So whatever. But I was wrong. So we're at the gardener's. Mary is not a governess. And we meet Mr. Hayward, a lawyer. Dun, dun, dun. And in the television show, they're just kind of kindred nerds. And they're just like, oh, you know things, and I know things, and we like knowing things, and so we like each other. But in the book, it's deeper than that. They both are intellectuals, but they expand each other. So yes, there's a connection because initially they're talking about things that they're interested in. But then they start to connect more deeply over Mrs. Macaulay's History of the World, essentially. I can't remember what her actual name was, but there's this book that was like my first book that really got me into being excited about knowledge and learning things. And have you read it? And he's like, no, but I'd be willing to. And I feel like that's a big difference. In the show, he's just like, oh yeah, I've read that. I like it too. And that doesn't show me anything about his character or their relationship. But in the book, he says, I'd be willing to. And so they agree to like, I'm going to suggest a book to you and you can suggest a book to me. And then Mary's suggested book was like the first 3 volumes of this history, which was a cheat. But she was just so excited about it. And I feel like I've definitely been that person and I've definitely been on the other end of that person. They're just so excited that it's like impossible to not completely overwhelm the other person with too much. But he like teases her about it and accepts it and, keeps her excitement sacred, I guess. So he reads it and then they talk about it and they go into super depth and, she has a moment like she had with Mr. Collins where she's respected and treated like a human, essentially. I kind of want to say like a man, but not like a man, like a human. But then Mr. Hayward turns around and says, now you got to read poetry. And she's like, you're a lawyer. Why do you like poetry? Your profession is to know things, to know facts, and to use those facts to defend the law or whatever. However you would define lawyering. So why on earth do you love poetry so much? That's, to Mary, she got into the history and the knowledge and the learning because it was safe, because it was black and white. And in a family where she didn't really fit in and there wasn't really distinction like that, she found safety in this knowledge. And so it's not like she'd never read poetry. She just didn't like it because it wasn't black and white. It didn't make her feel safe. And how do I say this? It was too deep for a person that has a depth to her, but like doesn't have experience in depth of relationship. So that safety in depth is not there for her yet. But Mr. Hayward says like it's precisely because my job is so fact, logic, that I enjoy poetry because it's the opposite of that. It's not the brain, but it's the heart. And we can't just ignore one because it's scary. They work together. And so that's his suggested book is this book of poetry. And of course, she starts to try to read it and is like, ugh, it's poetry. And I wish the dude would just say what he means, which is how we feel about everyone in our lives. Just, just tell me what you need. And she kind of, I think she picks one poem and really gets to understand it and finds her love for poetry like that. I think it's a shorter one and I can't remember what it was, but she starts to fall in love with poetry, which is really literary sneakiness for showing that she's starting to fall in love with Mr. Hayward. And they pull the best out of each other. And it's not just Mr. Hayward comes in and saves Mary and makes her palatable to society and my knight in shining armor. So they come together and she gets to share some of herself and become more of herself. And it goes both ways. And that's what a healthy relationship should be. So I really enjoyed their relationship. And then Mr. Ryder shows up. And he's supposed to be the other suitor. And the show probably sets this up a little bit better. I was more convinced that he was a viable suitor for my Mary in the show. In the book, it was like, no. Mr. Hayward is here. Mr. Hayward is perfect. You're just a fun friend, which is exactly how Mary acts the entire story. So it's really good writing because you're right there with Mary and you're like, no, not interested in you in that way. You're fun and you make me think, but no. Because his big thing is like, I'm affluent and I tried to be a lawyer too, and that's how he knows Mr. Hayward. But meh, wasn't for me. And I want to cast off the expectations of society and follow my feelings, which is interesting because that's what the writer was setting up with the love of poetry. Is that you should have feelings too, but Mr. Ryder is that to the extreme where there's just feelings, there's very little logic, and so he could never be the right choice. So the whole time I was like, yep, that's Mr. Ryder. When does Mr. Hayward come back? And I was really into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this relationship. It feels so healthy. I really enjoy narratives where there are actual healthy relationships and not just romantic, dramatic relationships. Because that feels like a lie that's trying to make it look like that's something you want. And it's like, it's fun to read about, but in real life, it's exhausting and there's no safety. And I don't want it. Anyway, that's why I was really into this relationship. But then I had to stop reading. I was so angry at this book because they're having a wonderful time. Mr. Hayward is getting really Regency era intimate. So not how we would define intimate today, but he's dropping a lot of hints. And Mary's like, yeah, I'm right there with you. And it's just this gradual, realistic, yeah, we're gonna just move to the next step. And then Mr. Hayward turns cold and doesn't and just like turns off and she can't connect with him anymore. And I was so angry. Why? And Mary responds like how I would. She eventually is like, oh, he must be jealous of Mr. Ryder, but that's stupid. And it's even more stupid that he didn't just ask me if I was interested in Mr. Ryder and he just assumes and now he's being a jerk about it. And so she knows that logically she should just confront him and be like, hey, I don't like Mr. Ryder. Can you stop being stupid? Like, I want you. But it's Regency period and she's a pissed off lady. And so she just kind of snaps at him a lot. She's like, ugh. But she's like, I've definitely been there. She's like, we'll do that confrontation later. Right now, I want to treat you stupid because you are being stupid. And then they get caught in some big rainstorm while they're hiking up a mountain. And in the chaos of getting down and make sure everyone's doesn't have influenza for being soaked through in their 20 layers of clothing, I'm pretty sure Mr. Hayward just disappears. Like the next morning, well, it's not the next morning. She like sleeps for like 24 hours. And then she wakes up and Mr. Hayward's gone, and he's left a note, and he's like, I gotta go. My mom needs me. My mom's calling. I gotta go home. I hope to see you again. Bye. And then he's just gone. He's gone. So I had to put the book down for, I want to say it was like a week. And I was like, I don't want to read that. I don't want to pick that up again because so stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And like, I knew I wanted to finish the story, but I was so angry. I was right there with Mary. But eventually, I picked it back up again and just slogged through the stupid. So Mary's just devastated. She's devastated that she never got to tell Mr. Hayward how she felt. She never got to confront him because she was too busy being petty and angry. And she doesn't know where she is. This isn't, you can't just look him up on Instagram or whatever it is nowadays. He's gone. And she has no way to contact him. And like she talks to Mrs. Gardner about this. And she's like, maybe if I just wrote him a letter and told him how much I loved him. And she's like, you can't do that. You're a woman. And this is the Regency era. You can't tell people how you feel. You can't reach out to them first. That is entirely inappropriate. She says this with love, but it's like, So Mary just has to wait and hope that he eventually comes back. It doesn't come back like married or something weird. Man, that would have sucked. I think I would have just stopped reading at that point. But of course, Mr. Ryder comes. But more importantly, or more devastatingly, Mom shows up. Mrs. Bennet shows up to the Gardners and says, oh, Mr. Darcy insisted that I come and meet with the special doctor. And he insisted that I stay away for as long as I needed to be properly cared for. And it's like, Mr. Darcy hates your guts and wanted you out of his house. So she shows up and, of course, treats Mary like she's scum. But then finds out there's a Mr. Ryder. Affluent Mr. Ryder with much monies. And it turns out that this was an interesting little side story. Darcy was set to inherit Lady Catherine de Bourgh's estate upon her death. However, her sickly daughter fell in love with her doctor. And of course, a working class man, that's disgusting. And you were intended for so-and-so. I don't remember. She was intended for Darcy, but that didn't happen. I'm sure Lady Catherine made other plans. But she tried to, cut off Anne and force them to be separated. And Anne is like, nope, I love him. And pretty much decides to elope with him. So Lady Catherine says, Darcy, you must intervene and make her do the right thing, aka the thing that I want. So Elizabeth and Darcy come and they meet with Anne and they meet with the doctor and they're like, hey, the doctor's pretty good. Like, he's gonna be a good husband. They're gonna have a good life. I can't break them up. That's wrong. So Lady Catherine's like, well, I cut you out of my will too. And so the Darcys don't care. They've got plenty of money. So in all of this spite, because nobody would do what she wanted, she eventually bestows her estate on Mr. Ryder, who is some nephew down the line to her. And so Mrs. Bennet finds out. So of course, as soon as she finds out that Ryder's interested in Mary, she's like, you will marry this man or you are scum. And pulls all of the guilt tripping and all of her usual tactics and is like really encouraging Mr. Ryder. She's essentially wooing Mr. Ryder for Mary. And Mary is being really clear. She said, I'm not interested. I won't marry him. She says it over and over again to Mrs. Bennet's face. But she's so far gone that she can't hear it. So eventually, Mr. Ryder comes and says, I'd like a private moment with Mary. And of course, Mrs. Bennet's like, of course, everyone out, pinch your cheeks, that kind of stuff. And he sits down and he's like, I really like you, Mary, and you make life exciting, and I want us to go away to Italy together and read poetry and drink wine and blah, blah, blah. Because I've always wanted to go to Italy, and there's some geopolitical reason why that was a bad idea that I wasn't following. But he wanted to go to Italy because nobody goes to Italy, and he wanted to, or maybe people in Italy didn't have the uptight principles that the English had. I don't. They really wanted to go to Italy for some reason before he met Mary. But he's like, I want you to come with me. And Mary's like, oh, you have proposed marriage, and everyone around me has made it very clear that you might be my only proposal of marriage, especially if Mr. Hayward never comes back, or if he just doesn't like me. So there's always that possibility that nothing to do with Mr. Ryder, and he just doesn't like me. Anyway, so she considers him and is just true to her feelings. And of course, she says, no, thank you, but I wish you all the best. We're really good friends. Write to me when you go to Italy, essentially. And, of course, he's devastated, and he leaves, and then Mrs. Bennet is devastated when she finds out that she said no and writes her off, and it's ridiculous. But then Mary's thinking about it and realizes that she misunderstood Mr. Ryder, and I did too, because he said it's very Regency era where we don't just come out and say things. But she realizes that he was asking her to be his mistress, to just go to Italy and live together and sleep together and never get married and blah, blah, blah. Which they've set up throughout the book that, yeah, a man can do that, but a woman cannot. A woman cannot ever recover from that. She can't ever come back to society. That's why Lydia's thing was so devastating, because when the man decides he's done, and they're done having fun, once the man decides he's bored or done or ready to move on or find someone better or decides he wants to have marriage but not with you, then you're just kind of screwed. You have no legal right to anything except for scorn. Maybe a baby. Anyways, it's very insulting. But she's like, well, I would have said no anyways, so whatever. Mr. Ryder, and that's kind of his character, that everyone's like, he's eccentric, but he's, how do I say it, entertaining, sweet, sincere, so we tolerate him. And just kind of write off his eccentricities with, oh, that's just your cute little thing. Anyways, so she's like, oh, whatever. And then she is home alone the next morning. And Ryder comes back the next morning. Is feeling very Mr. Collins. He's like, I would like to apologize. It was very rude of me to ask you to be my mistress. And realize that I actually really want you in my life. So I would like to ask for the honor of your hand in marriage. And he says it really sincerely. It's not like, well, because you said no, I guess we can get married. He says it sincerely. Like, I really want you in my life. And, if marriage is the appropriate way to do it, I'm willing to do it that way. And she's like, I was serious. I don't want to marry you. And then, bless his heart, with, no ill intention, he says, but you would fix me. You would make me a better man. In my head, it's just like, that's nice. A good therapist could do that too, It's like, that is not a reason to marry someone, is that you could fix them. No, 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 no. That is a project and not a relationship. That's why that juxtaposes with what Mary had with Mr. Hayward, is that they were making each other better people, but it wasn't because there was a project. It was because they love each other. And then Mr. Ryder's coming and saying, hey, make me a better person. Me, me, me. So she says no again. Mr. Ryder runs off to Italy. And still, no Mr. Hayward. No sign, no letter. It's a little strange. But when you're in the Regency era, not much else to do. So Mary kind of has to come to terms with, I'm just going to be an old maid now and be a spinster. And she handles it very well. So in the show, she decides, I'm going to be a governess. I'm good at being a governess. I like it. I can support myself financially by being a governess. And that is a very modern take on the character, is that for her to be successful, she needs to be supporting herself, which is not historically accurate. So in the book, they set it up when she's young, her piano teacher is a person that has to financially support herself. But as a woman, it's extremely difficult and painful, and she felt bad for her piano teacher that she had to teach piano lessons and be treated poorly just to survive. And so when Mary comes to this decision on what she's going to do with her life, she very logically says, I don't have to do that. I don't have to financially support myself. I have a family. This is how society is set up so that you take care of your family. It's the same thing that's happening with Mrs. Bennet, that she's being bounced around from her daughter's households because you financially take care of your family. And so Mary says, I know I'm okay. My sisters have all made good marriages, and I will never want for food and shelter, you know. I'll never have that problem, but I would still like a purpose. And so it just fits her character so much better in the book. She decides that she's going to write. She's going to be like Mrs. Macaulay or whatever her name was, the female author that wrote that book, her first book, and inspired her to a lifetime of learning. And she decided that she was going to try to write something that would inspire others. And I was like, that is so perfect. I'm pretty sure I ran in the other room and we'd already finished the show. And I was like, they did it so much better. And told my husband, this just makes more sense. And so she's just content with the decisions that she's made. And she's finding purpose, which I feel like, as I said, that her becoming a governess and deciding to financially support herself, it's like a very modern take on this Regency character. And it doesn't fit. But her seeking out a purpose and finding something filling feels not modern, but current. Like that is what I seek from life. Like my parents have made a lot of decisions. I've made a lot of decisions. And so between all those decisions, I'm in a pretty safe place. I have a home, I have food on the table, and I seek purpose. And the purpose isn't to get the home and the food, but to find meaning and to share me with the world. Because although a lot of times it doesn't feel like it, I'm a unique person. There's nobody else like me, and I'm on this earth for a reason, even if it's just to smile at the person walking down the street. It makes a difference. And so I seek purpose. And there's been times where seeking that purpose has not been healthy, where it's just purpose just to be busy, or purpose just to get money. And not that money is bad. I like money, but to seek purpose for me. Nice. So that feels quote unquote modern, but really just human and real. That she finds this purpose and she leans into it. And then Caroline Bingley shows up and she's like, let's go have some tea while I insult your clothing and your family. And I was like, fine. Just get it over with. Caroline. I noticed that Mr. Ryder's been hanging out at your house a lot, and you don't have a chance with him. He's mine. And Mary's just like, I don't want him. I said no. Leave me alone. And Caroline doesn't believe her. Like in the show, they tried to like give Caroline humanity by making it that she did believe her, and they were kind of friends at the end. But in the book, she's like, I don't believe you, which is more realistic. Because that's how she is. She is manipulative and will do anything to get what she wants and lie and say things out of the side of her mouth. So she believes that's what Mary would do, that Mary wants Mr. Ryder, and that obviously she doesn't like Caroline because Caroline has given her no reason to like her. So Caroline believes that Mary is lying and is going to take Mr. Ryder. And Mary's just like, oh my gosh, shut up. I don't like Mr. Ryder. I like Mr. Haywood, and I would totally marry him if he came back, but he's gone. And so get out of my life. I'm so sick of your crap. Caroline's like, fine. We'll just see how it turns out then. And walks away. And then Mary's like, good. Get out of my life. I don't want to see you again. And goes on with her life. And then, of course, Mr. Hayward returns and confesses that he was stupid. So Mr. Ryder had told Mr. Hayward that he was inheriting Lady Catherine's estate, and Mr. Hayward wonderfully decided on his own to step aside and allow Mary the opportunity to be really rich and marry Mr. Ryder. And of course was heartbroken and devastated because he didn't have oodles of money, and he had just won some big case and was super excited because it meant that his career was really progressing and that he could support a wife and a home and children. and then was just devastated that he was in the way of Mary having loads of riches. And he loved her so much that he wanted her to have that, even though he didn't confirm that she wanted that. And he confesses that it was quite stupid. And so they figure it out, and she's like, "Yeah, you were stupid, but I should have told you. I should have told you how much I care about you." And they're like, "I love you, I love you, I love you." They get together. It's very cute. And then we get the little tidbit that Caroline Bingley, in an attempt to get Mr. Ryder, decided to track down Mr. Hayward and do what Mary could not do, which was to write him and say, "Hey, Mary really loves you, and as soon as you go back and ask her to marry you, she's going to marry you, so please go do that." As her manipulating to get Mary off the market so she could have Mr. Ryder. And it's like, "Oh, thank you, Caroline Bingley. Even though it was not a kind act, it saved our lives." So he only came back because someone told him that he would automatically win if he came back. Which is a little, ugh, you're being stupid. But we get together and happiness. Yay! So a few things that I noticed being different between the show and the book. I'm not gonna do a whole episode about it, but I've mentioned some of them. Like Caroline is just a manipulative witch in the book. And that's all we get to see of her because she doesn't let anybody in. Like if Mary was closer to her, maybe she would have seen something redeemable, but because she is beneath her, Mary never gets to see it. And so Caroline does mean things for mean, spiteful, petty reasons. The show makes it so that when they get caught in the storm, Caroline gets her foot stuck and thinks she's been abandoned, but Mary's the only one that comes back and saves her. So that when they have this confrontation at the end, Caroline believes Mary, and that's why she sends the letter to Mr. Hayward. It's because she wants this for Mary, with a little side effect that she'll get what she wants to. Which is interesting twist, and I think I enjoyed it both ways. One was more accurate and one was more cathartic. Cathartic as in all people aren't bad people, they just do bad and stupid things. And then realistic was like, yeah, even if she was redeemable, we were never close enough to her to see that. But I'd totally read a good story about Caroline Bingley and see how she is redeemable or irredeemable. And then in the show, there's this weird moment that doesn't, not moment, but character. They literally invent a character that doesn't exist in the book at all. And they pretty much stole the plot line from Sense and Sensibility. They're like, "Hey, let's have Mary and Mr. Hayward get to know each other and start being interested in each other. And then let's reveal that Mr. Hayward is actually low-key engaged to this other lady. And we'll add tension that way." And it's like, that's so Sense and Sensibility. He's got this fiance from his childhood, and he must honor his commitment to the fiance. But none of that's in the book, and they just stole that from Sense and Sensibility to fill out the episodes. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think it did much for the characters, except for distract from the characters. And it kind of made Mr. Hayward look stupid. Not stupid, but insincere. Yeah. It took away from the characters for me. Alright, now a question for the club. Do you think the show's version of Mary, the one who chooses independence and I can take care of myself, is more satisfying, or does the book's version of I'm human and I need purpose hit harder? I would like to know your opinion on that, especially since that was so distinct of an ending for me. My next episode is going to be about Rebecca, a romance suspense novel. It's supposedly a classic, so we'll see what I think. Okay, that's it from me. Back to my books. I'll be reading. Bye.